I'm Daunis Auers. I'm an associate professor of comparative politics at the Department of Political Science, University of Latvia. I had the pleasure of going to the University of California, Berkeley in the 2005-2006 academic year as a Fulbright scholar. Yeah, well, with my research, I was writing about political parties in post-communist Europe and essentially trying to focus on the organization of political parties. Now, that simply means looking at what goes on inside political parties in terms of membership, how ideology develops, and these kind of things. And I had chosen to go to the University of California, Berkeley, because they have one of the most notable research centers that focuses on this issue, and they have a number of notable academics and scholars dealing with these issues. Probably Stephen M. Fish is the most famous of them. And so I had the opportunity to speak to my colleagues about this research. We shared our knowledge, methodological practices, and also, of course, using the academic facilities in the university. I'm spending a year without any major teaching obligations, without any administrative and managerial obligations, and simply being able to focus on one's research in a fantastic research environment. And actually, I also used the facilities sort of more widely in the Bay Area. I managed to spend a couple of days also at Stanford University, at the Hoover Institution. And in the Hoover Institution, I actually had access to some papers on Latvian political parties that, bizarrely enough, are not available in Latvia. Because the Hoover collection has papers from pretty much every country in the world in a variety of different themes. And one of the founders of Latvia's Way, who wished to remain anonymous, but one of the founders of the Latvian Way party had donated his entire papers from the first 5 years of the party to the Hoover Institute. So things like internal documents on polling, on organization, on image building for elections, and so on. And this actually, I think, is the most interesting and insightful collection of papers on what goes on inside Latvian political parties that you'll find anywhere in the world. And bizarrely enough, it's located on the other side of the world in California in the Hoover Institute. So it really was a fantastic place to go. You almost don't know what you're going to discover when you're there. It was absolutely fantastic, and it really brought home to me that American universities are more than just places of learning. They're places where communities are constructed. And for me, I think that's something that we should take and adapt to our universities in Europe, and also most particularly to Latvia. Because I think we have a tendency here that both professors, academic staff, and students themselves, they see universities as a place where you go for 3 or 4 years to receive some kind of concrete education, and they don't look at the wider picture. I think that if we took the example of American universities and were more active in involving our alumni, and we were more active in trying to build relationships with businesses and enterprises and non-governmental organizations which are both regionally close or share some kind of philosophy, then I think that we would enrich our campuses. I mean, we would enrich them with more activity, intellectual activity, also be a way of attracting finances, building the campuses, and really trying to maintain contact with our alumni in the long run. I mean, one of the most striking days, I think, in the American calendar is homecoming, when former graduates come to the university for a sort of long weekend and you know, maintain their old contacts. They, of course, also bring funds, so the universities get some money for this. But it also means that you sort of maintain these contacts throughout your life. And that's something that we should focus more on in Latvia, and especially at the University of Latvia. My best memories, that's a tough one, because there are so many. But, you know, I think I would go back to that American football match between Berkeley and Washington State. Watching a football game, a college football game, is utterly unique. There's nothing like it in Europe. The build-up beforehand, the game itself, the marching bands, the student chants, the cheers, it's something utterly unique, and that is something that has certainly stayed in my memory. And it also has turned me into a big American football fan. When the American football season is going in the autumn or the fall, then I usually stay up on Saturdays and Sundays till the early morning hours watching a couple of games. Well, my advice would be first of all, to pick your university very carefully. Different universities have different specializations, and make sure that the department where you're going is actually a good fit for you, that there are both people and institutional expertise which can assist you in your Fulbright experience. And the second thing is to really make sure that you have a very rigorous program, that you know what you're doing. Of course, there should be some flexibility while you're there, but if you know what your project is, and the project should be quite sizable for a one-year visit, if you know what you want to do, then I think you can also achieve that, because the American universities have the infrastructure for you to really achieve anything you want.